Dr. Jane Snyder has a long legacy of making wishes come true, long before the Summit School was even a glimmer in her eye. She started off as a public school teacher, advocating for students. Dial forward a few years, she was a professor at George Washington University.
She worked as an adjunct professor in early childhood. She supervised teachers and worked with me.
And then she said, you know what, I really need to get back to the field to touch children. So she started a private practice in Annapolis called Children's Potential. She developed a protocol for evaluating children with learning differences. And Jane kept referring a lot of the students who were really struggling in mainstream schools to a couple of schools in Baltimore that were specifically made for kids with learning differences. And at some point, there was no room at that inn.
Genesee was turning 70 kids away. 70 kids who would not get the opportunity to be schooled in the proper environment for them.
They said, Jane, you need to start a school of your own. And she said, oh, I don't know about that. And she thought about it and said, why not? So that's how it started. So the story goes that she went home to her husband, Marty, and said, Marty, honey, I'm going to start a school. And he looked at her and he said, are you crazy? And then she said, no, I'm not crazy. And guess what? It's going to be a not-for-profit school.
My response was pretty quick. Could you take the not for out of that? Being dyslexic myself and ADD and having substantial difficulties throughout my young years in school, I was thrilled.
There was no school. It was an idea to be developed.
So in 1989, after 2 years of careful study, evaluation, research, Jane Snyder opened the doors of the Summit School in Upper Marlboro.
I was there with all the teachers, and they were coming to pick up copies of materials that they were going to work on in the weeks before we opened. And into the room walks this tall, uniformed man who introduces himself as the fire marshal, and he said, you have to clear the building, I'm closing this place down. So it was like 10 days before we were due to open.
Where do you go? You've got 24 kids lined up to start school, etc. And Jane, in her relationship with Ann Chambers at Indian Creek, Mrs. Chambers opened her schoolyard to us.
It was a major challenge, but it had a major benefit. Within that confined space, the energy that Jane started right from the beginning allowed teachers and students to bond in a way that would not have happened in the same way with the same intensity over that short period of time.
That's the amazing thing with Jane. It doesn't really matter what obstacles there are. She keeps the ship afloat.
I can remember driving up a driveway through a white picket fence gate and up the hill and beautiful rolling hillside and a house, and met Jane, and she was just incredible. I mean, she had turned this house out in the country into a school.
It was a mansion that had been converted. It had a spiral staircase. I mean, it was just a very unique place.
Early days of the school, we had a small staff, and Jane decided to take us all out to a ropes course. And so we were all dressed in our jeans and got to school ready to go there. And lo and behold, 3 limos come rolling in to take us to this ropes course. It was just so much fun.
I think there were like 25 students, and then they went up to 45. She wanted to grow up to, over 100.
The board said to her, Jane, you have done it. You have made this school viable. It's time for us to search for a new home. So in 1995, the Summit School relocated to the current campus, which was a horse farm back in the day.
There was a doctor that told my parents that getting the help I needed was the difference between me making the French fries and owning the franchise. And when my parents told me that, I really took that to heart and realized how much this school meant to me. And sorry. And I'm so thankful. She's really made my wishes come true.
Jane knew that these children were children who were bright. They just learned differently.
They really worked with my difference more than me having to to change my difference to conform to another school.
In the public school system, I'm a secondary assistant principal. I realize on a daily basis the importance of student learning, and for those kids who have learning differences, it becomes even more important.
Coming to school every day was just like being with family, because everybody, knew what you were going through. They had similar experiences, and they understood you.
When my son came here, he was exceptional. I guess all our children at Summit are exceptional, but he hadn't reached his potential. And what Summit's been able to do is to unlock the door.
I decided to send my son here as I came here myself. I got all the help and support I needed, wonderful staff here, and now I see it for Cody as well.
With her leadership and her guidance, this school has been a success, and I'm happy to be a part of it.
Rob and I both have a unique experience from going from being a student to becoming part of the faculty. Coming back, I see her vision and what she built. It really has something to do with creating something bigger than herself and something that constantly gives back.
Oh, I've seen the results Jane gets. I know some of the kids that came through the school. I've been very impressed with her and the approach of the school. I never had a doubt about supporting Summit.
Jane understood that teachers needed to be able to teach students, and they get to make a difference in the lives of children, and they get to learn while they're making that difference.
I don't know how to put it into words, but sort of being around her and catching sort of that positive energy that she has, I guess, has made me continue to want to work with children. I'm 42 years old, and I still think when I grow up I want to be like Dr. Snyder.
It's through Jane that I've learned everything. Jane and then Joan after her have all been dedicated to teacher growth and teacher renewal.
I've learned to be diagnostic all the time, always looking for feedback from the child that I can then implement.
In addition to working with a lot of great kids and staff here, I ended up meeting my wife here, and we've been married now for 45 years. Actually, 13 years, and we have 2 kids, 11 and 8, and I'd always kind of wished that I personally could meet somebody like her and have a great family, so.
So thanks, Jane. If it wasn't for you, we wouldn't be here together.
All my work with her has always been enjoyable and fun.
Jane has many talents, but one of them is she has a knack for fashion. She decided to motivate the kids to raise money for a really good cause that she offered as an incentive, that she would come to school with blue hair dyed and on a Harley motorcycle.
If I were to write a book about Jane, it would be something like Nothing Stops Me.
Everything You Need to Know by Jane Snyder.
How dyslexic kids can change the world.
What makes you beautiful?
How to cook with Jane. Let's see, if Jane were on an island and she could only take 3 things, I think she'd take Marty and her 2 children.
Clearly not me. No, I think she'd bring me Marty, her dogs, and her dancing shoes.
Her competition dress and her dance instructor.
A solar-powered phonograph, and she would bring a dancing floor.
Her best friend, Dr. McCarthy. Definitely a good book.
Some good food.
Her favorite pot for cooking.
The Summit School, the kids who go to the Summit School.
Her phone, because she'd be calling somebody, get me off of this island, get me off of this island.
The 2013 school year is Jane's last year here at Summit. And while she will not be here every day, the philosophy that she has instilled in us for teaching and learning will live on forever.
Just wonderful joy when I think about all the children and the transformation that takes place in every one of them, and the families who become so grateful, and they will do anything they can to support you and offer their talents and their guidance. So the joy of knowing that you've made a contribution that has transformed the lives of some children is a beautiful thing.
Jane Snyder, You will always be the heart and soul of the Summit School. Thank you.
Jane, thank you for all you do for the Summit School and your friends.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jane.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Snyder.
Thank you.
From the bottom of my heart, Jane, thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Snyder.
Thanks, Jane.
Thank you, Jane.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Snyder.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Snyder.
See you later, doll.